Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for that incredible introduction. What's going on with the Orlando Police Department? So as most of you know, the Orlando Police Department is a full service police department. We handle everything from property crimes to homicide. So when I became chief about almost 2 years ago, my main focus is reduce violent crime and then improve our relationships with our community. So how do we reduce violent crime? So right now, shootings are down almost 50%. Homicides are down about 30%. And the way we did that was I rearranged the department. We focused on targeting those individuals that are doing the wrong thing. So we targeted all the violent criminals out there. If they were doing drugs related to crime, we did those. We targeted them. So we brought in 30 officers and made them a TAC unit. So what they do is they ride around two-man teams of marked cars, focusing on those areas where violent crime happens and focusing on individuals who do violent crime. We took our 40-man drug unit and we changed their focus. So they were targeting people who did, okay, you come in here, you bring in 4 kilos, but you've never been violent, you're not doing anything. They sort of would change their focus to the people who are doing violence, the people who are shooting each other over neighborhoods. If you're selling, dime marks of crack on a corner, but you'll kill other people to do that, they focused on that. We still focus on the other part. We use some of our partners, the DEA, and some of the partners to do the nonviolent things. So we still focus on that, but their focus is 100% violent criminals who shoot each other over territory. Those two things and improving our CID and our homicide unit and changing some of the personnel around where they focus on solving the crimes as quickly as possible and getting those bad people off the street, that has really made a great impact and that's got us to where we are. The department's about 1,000 officers. We are growing. As most of you have seen, the city's starting to push east and south. That's down there near 417 and 528 area. We're pushing out 528 eastbound and moving towards Osceola County. So the city's annexing a lot of property. When you do those kind of things, you already have Lake Nona down there, which is a large area. We're increasing our officers down there and increasing our officers down in those areas. To keep from taking from other parts of the city, we're hiring more and the department's growing. We're adding about another 40 officers in October. We added about 60 officers last October. So every year we're growing and adding things. We've got some units that are starting to come into fruition. Homeless has become a big issue and is right where we are. Homeless has become a huge issue for us. Orlando PD is now doing a part in that. So we have 10 officers working off-duty shifts twice a day, and they target trying to help and intervene in some of the homeless that are doing the wrong thing. Maybe they're on somebody's private property, they don't want them there. Maybe they're sleeping on the sidewalk, and they try and just move them along. So an example is we stopped 800 people last week and tried to redirect them. We only arrested 30. And those are usually the people who become combative with the officer, won't leave a private property where they're trespassing, things of that nature. But most of the arrests are for either panhandling from a roadway, which is illegal, fighting the police, having drugs or a weapon in their possession, things of that nature. So we understand that you can't arrest your way out of homelessness, you have to give them the resources. And so we try and give them resources, direct them to some of our partners, like the Salvation Army in the back, Coalition for the Homeless, Christian Service Center. We try and direct people to theirs and see what kind of resources they can get and get people back on their feet and moving along. But one thing I will say, Orlando is a very warm climate and has always had a very large homeless population, and that's not going to change. But we're trying to do our best. In October, we started a 10-man full-time unit, so it'll no longer be an overtime thing. It'll be a full-time unit that works with that. They'll have 4 counselors assigned to that unit, and the counselors will help the officers to, hey, this person needs this resource or that resource, and sort of helps it to move that along. We also are bringing along another TAC unit, and they'll start in 3 weeks, be another 10-man unit, and they're with the Paramore area. Paramore area, we didn't put a TAC unit in there because they already have Paramore bike units, but what we've seen is because downtown has such a interesting group of people in the nightlife and such a busy nightlife. Our Paramore bike units ended up going down there to help them. So every Friday and Saturday and Sunday night, we were leaving the Paramore area sort of unprotected. So now this TAC unit will backfill them, and they go downtown on the bikes to help out with the downtown crowds. This unit will stay in Paramore and deal with all the crime that's happening there. So we're trying to spread it out and make sure everybody gets even enforcement, and we're taking care of our problem areas and keeping everybody safe. So the Atlanta Police Department is really in a good position right now. I've been here 30 years. I'll probably do a few more years under the great Mayor Buddy Dyer. So I think we're in the right direction. We're going to keep moving forward. We have great partnerships. We have a lot of officers assigned to our federal agencies to assist there. And so we're getting the biggest thing we can get out of them is the assistance we get for some of the bigger crimes. We have a great relationship with Orange County. Me and Sheriff Mina, we both were worked in a drug unit together. We both were on SWAT together when he was at Orlando Police Department. So I was a deputy chief under him. So we, of course, have a great relationship. So we have a great relationship with our partners, even Sheriff Lima up in the north. So it's a good time to be with the Orlando Police Department. We are hiring. So, of course, if you got anybody who is interested, definitely have them reach out. It's a great career, great job. And one thing I would say, I love coming to work every day. Orlando's a great place. And when I've been doing it for 30 years and love coming to your job every day, that's a good thing because a lot of people don't have that. But here's what I always do. I always answer questions, so I give you your time. I'll let you guys ask me whatever questions you have. And if most of you have seen me speak before, I'm a straight shooter. I answer questions very straight and direct. So ask me whatever you want.
Chief, I have a question. Give me some, game.
Hey, thank you very much. You are doing an incredible job, and I, on the front line with you, see that on a regular basis with your officers. A little while ago in our country, the woke movement had this defund the police and all this stuff against the police. How has that affected the morale of your officers?
I think it had an impact because of most of you saw in 2020, we had a lot of protests and everything came, and that's when it all started. We had protests, defund the police and all those kind of things. I will say, and I give a lot of credit to our Mayor Buddy Dyer. He really wanted no part of that. And if you really look at the police department, everything that we have is basically to protect our community. Even during that time, in 2020, we added 2 more Bearcats. And those are, for those who don't know, they're armored vehicles, and we use them for hostage rescue and different things of that nature. And we have a full-time SWAT team, and they run out there every day, and they're kicking in doors for either wanted violent criminals or for doing drug warrants. So they do those vehicles for protection. And it wasn't even a question, because at that time they're like, oh, it's militaristic, it's all those kind of things. With those mayor and city council, it wasn't even a question. They didn't even question me. I just did one little presentation, like, yeah, goodbye, have a nice day. So, I mean, the support of the city has been great, and that's been one of the things that's very good for us. And then as I became chief, my focus has always been about the officers doing the job they're here to do. They're here to be police officers. They're not here to be counselors. They're not here to, give out hugs. They're here to keep a community safe. And that's what I preach to my officers. You're here to keep the community safe and do it by the right means, but, people need to go to jail. They go to jail. Get violent criminals and get people off the street who don't need to be on the street. There's some people just don't understand. You may give them 30 and 40 chances, and they're still out there doing the same thing. So you need to go to jail. And that's one of the good things about Orlando Police Department. We are fighting crime. We are a police department. I think the officers understand that, and that's why they've been doing the great mission they are.
We, in November, we'll have a opportunity to vote on making marijuana make it illegal to us to use it as recreational. What's from a officer's standpoint of enforcement, how is that going to affect you in saying releasing officers from trying to enforce the laws as they are today to making it where it's legal to do those sorts of things?
So that's an interesting thing, especially for me who's appointed and not elected. So I've sort of usually stay clear of those kind of questions. But here's the answer I give you, and since you answer from a police officer's point of view. We do enforce the laws that are in the books, and we adjust. I will say I've seen it come up many times where marijuana has come up and trying to make it legal. Now we have medical marijuana and those kind of things. We still arrest for marijuana on a daily basis. If the law changes either federal or state, then that would change for us. But right now it's still in the federal books as law. I mean, our dogs sniff for it. That's how we get in a lot of the vehicles that we search, and we make a lot of arrests for it. And a lot of the arrests that's a charge on that, but it's usually not the only charge. We usually don't just go out and target somebody unless you're doing, like, you're standing out here right in front of this building smoking. I mean, sorry, you're going to have a bad day. But a lot of people, if you're doing it in privacy at home, and we see the laws are changing and times are definitely changing, but we enforce the laws that are on the books. And I will say marijuana, and this is one of the things that's happened over the years, and drug dealers do this on purpose. So they mix it with something else. They lace it with either fentanyl, cocaine, heroin, because they want the addictive qualities. Yes, marijuana is a little addictive, but it's not anywhere near as addictive as heroin, cocaine, meth, and all these other drugs. So as a drug dealer, you lace it with that. So I always warn people to be very, very careful if they're even out there, if they don't know where the marijuana came from, because that dealer is going to lace it with something else because he wants you on the hook to buy his product. And marijuana alone may not get you on that hook. The other drugs will definitely get you on that hook. So you got to be careful with the marijuana out there. But I think for right now, even today, we're enforcing marijuana the way it is. If it changes in November, we adapt. So, thanks.
Chief, the airport is part of the city. This year, we're going to have 59 million people coming through there. On 9/11, one of the crews from Saudi Arabia came through there, and they killed a lot of people when they bombed the World Trade Center. My question is, I know you support the airport. If someone fentanyl or whatever, puts it in their checked luggage, the dogs are not going to smell it. You're going to go through the in entering process, and they're not going to do it. What are we doing to prevent drugs from being brought in checked luggage at the airport?
So there's a bunch of entities that work at the airport. I have entities out there that work drugs at the airport. We have dogs. We have a drug unit at the airport. Metropolitan Bureau of Investigation has a drug unit, DEA, Homeland Security. Everybody's present at the airport. And actually they work out of the OPD offices. And every day they're making arrests for people smuggling drugs and money. So people don't understand. Usually it's drugs coming in and money going out. So there'll be someone with, $500,000 in their checked baggage or on their strapped to their body. So between Homeland Security and us, we're looking for those kind of things. We make a lot of arrests on a daily basis. But on top of that, so I have drug dogs at the airport, but I also have bomb dogs because there's always a threat. They smell for bombs, guns, and all that kind of nature, along with the HSI dogs and the different customs dogs. So everybody's there, and we all work very well together. And a lot of most of the big drug seizures we get at the airport are gun seizures because guns go to Puerto Rico. Come from tips. So we've got a whole network of people giving us tips, and we're waiting for the people when the plane lands and we make the arrest. So we're very active at the airport.
Thank you for being here, Chief.
Thank you.
You've talked about drugs and violent crimes. What about human trafficking? I've noticed some other counties in the Central Florida area that have had some pretty big busts of some human trafficking. And it's all around us. We know from what's been happening. But how do you have a task force specifically for human trafficking? And if so, what kind of plans are you looking to do for making a bigger impact on these guys?
So we actually make a very big impact to human trafficking. So how we do it is we have the Metropolitan Bureau of Investigation. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's a task force combined of officers from all the area, 3 county area agencies. So you'll have Seminole County deputies there, Orange County deputies there, we're there. You'll have UCF cops, officers there. So you have officers from all these little agencies, but then you'll also have DEA agents, FBI agents, Homeland Security agents. So I ran this task force as a lieutenant over the narcotics part for a long time. So it's split into 2 sections, narcotics and then vice and human trafficking. The vice and human trafficking side targets all that. They run daily operations to combat human trafficking. Now, on top of that, because you have a task force to do that, but every random officer may come across somebody who's being human trafficked or at a hotel or something like that on just a regular domestic or a regular kind of call. So every officer is trained in human trafficking, what it looks like, and then they basically there's an on-call at Metropolitan Bureau of Investigation. So the officer comes across and says, "This doesn't seem right." He calls the lieutenant over at the Metropolitan Bureau of Investigation. He'll send agents out there. They'll look into it and they'll follow it up further. So that's where actually most of their work comes from. Is like somebody going to a regular call in an apartment complex, and it's a guy there with 8 young women, and none of them are related, and they look like they're in fear. Nobody speaks English, and all those kind of things are going on. And he's like, "Well, this seems very odd." And then he'll bring the task force in, and they'll work the crime from there. So we do get a lot of human trafficking, but we also do get a lot of sexual predator crimes. And we just finished up a weekend operation where we put ourselves as underage person, like a 13-year-old little girl. We go online, and people travel from all over to come here to have sex with minors. And then they come here and we take them down, we arrest them. Those are huge felonies, huge sexual predator felonies, and we take them down. But there's a whole network for that. So we work at all the different angles to try and keep our community and our young people safe. So I know that they just made it worse, distracted driving. I know it's a secondary offense now, and we can hand out tickets for that. A lot of that is you have to see people doing it, and a lot of those come about from accidents. Usually it's after the accident, and people don't understand that we can see if you were on your phone while you were driving. So, I mean, we ask, but we also have technology which will tell us if you're on the phone when there's an accident, especially if it's a serious one where people are seriously hurt. So we have a way of telling. But distracted driving, I think, is always going to be around and become even bigger now, just because the population is very young. They live on their phones. And I mean, I see it all the time. Driving people like, man, they're not even looking up, and they're just looking down at the phone and hoping the car does what it's supposed to do. But it's so frequent. We get so many rear-end accidents from it, especially Orlando, because it's so busy with rush hour. It's one of those things we're always working with the legislature to see if we can do more.
Yeah, thank you. Were you able to keep your dog when you became chief, or did you have to let your dog go?
I kept my dog. So basically I was a sergeant, I was an officer in K-9. I had one dog.
Uh-huh.
I left for 1 year and they made me a sergeant. I came back and got another dog and ran canine for 5 years. And I've kept 5 different dogs. And the last one I had, I kept him. He died 3 years after we retired. So, I mean, they do let you keep your dog. You pay $1, so the liability is off of the city when your dog goes to east the neighbor.
Well, you just look like you should have one, but
Yeah,
the-
it's a great dog, and it was a lot of fun. Canine's a great assignment. It's very enjoyable.
the question I had for you was the concept of the counselors obviously has been debated with all the defund as we talked about. Are the counselors part of your budget?
So it depends. I have counselors in my overdose unit, which is a drug unit so the overdose unit, how they work is if you die of an overdose, they basically, they do an investigation and figure out where you got the drugs from. And they investigate that person, try and work that drug dealer. There are counselors in that unit, and that unit goes out there and helps the people, the families of the victims, of course. That's paid for by the federal government. Then I have other counselors that are paid for by me, and a few of them that are paid for through a contract through Aspire. And those are the ones that go out every day and deal with the mental health problems that we have. So we have what's called a mental health response unit. They're not police officers. They respond if there's no one, if you're not violent, you maybe just are having a bad day, thinking about killing yourself or something like that, but you have no weapons and no means, they will go instead of a police officer. Now, if
So
you say
they're
you have weapons,
replacing you, they're assisting
they're
you.
assisting us.
In other places, they were talking about, you just send the counselors out there and let them
Yeah.
be the first contact.
Yeah.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah, as long as they can go out and be the responder, which is all fine. But so we've seen some hit or miss. The county has a co-responder program where an officer and a counselor goes out there. So we're always looking to change and see what's the best response. So we have them without an officer, they have a winning officer. So we're looking at the stats and see which way is better to try and help with mental health things that are really not police problems. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chief. So with the woke movement that goes on in some other cities and their defunding, as we've said, how much, if any, has OPD profited with police who are leaving departments, let's say up north, and coming to OPD?
So we were teaming, and we just started doing this recently because it's very successful for us. We've gone to some of the bigger agencies where they've totally changed the way they police, and they've totally become where, I mean, some places they can't even do foot pursuits. If somebody runs from you after shooting somebody, you got to look at them and watch them run. So those are the kind of things that are going on in other northern agencies. We go there, we do recruiting drives, and we're getting large numbers from these other agencies, which is good for us because usually they're an officer with a great amount of experience, all used to working in a big city. And then they come here and they're most likely be like, okay, Orlando's pretty normal, and they like it here. And the money from up north transfers very well to money down here because your dollar goes a lot further. So a lot of those people who are even close to retirement, they have a little bit of a retirement built up. It works out well. So we're focusing on those officers now and those people now. Because if you're a cop, you know how to be a cop. You're probably not going to be frustrated and quit, which I have a problem with when somebody comes out of college. Sometimes they're like, "Ooh, that's a scary job. I don't like that. I'm out of here." So it's one of those kind of things that helps us a lot.
Floridians prior and post-COVID are used to living under the DeSantis laws and rules. This is the presidential election year where emotions are heightened. Last election, many people were afraid to fly their Trump gear because of all of the backlash. This year, do you propose any kind of narrative, for example, that would help citizens express their right to free speech and not feel like they're going to get a brick thrown in their window in the middle of the night?
So the one thing we do, I mean, as you can see, everybody sees it at Lake Eola, down at City Hall. Every week there's different kinds of protests for whatever it is. I mean, you saw, most of you saw last night in the news, we had an interaction with the pro-Palestinian movement, and then we had abortion 2 weeks before that. So, and I do notice that everybody comes out and flies whatever flags they want. And we do have some pro-Trump rallies and some different kind of rallies. So for us, everybody's the same. Now, I will say anybody threatens anybody for anything, then of course we roll out and we handle the situation. I mean, I don't care what you're out here, the rhetoric is. I mean, you was back to Ku Klux Klan, KKK came march. It is what it is. I mean, we just sit there and we protect them just like we do everybody else. Everybody has a right to freedom of speech. The only time we really intervene or do things is when you, of course, break the law, you do any property damage, or you hurt people. Then all the bets are off. As you saw back in 2020, when we threw gas at the crowd and we made a whole lot of arrests. I mean, that's just why we're here. We monitor the big events and we monitor any kind of rallies or protests. And then once it gets out of bounds, we finish it. I mean, that's just the way police departments have to be. So as long as you're peaceful, it's a great day. When it becomes violent, then, we have to change.
Thank you for being here. I love that you said you can't arrest homelessness out. Can you go into some more detail of how you all partner with other groups to help the homeless situation if they're not being violent, but they just need to be moved?
So what we do is, here's two examples. A few nights ago, we found a family of four, just came in from, Arkansas, which was a little odd. And they were sitting at Lake Dot right over here. And so the officer comes up and is like, hey, you can't just sit here on the sidewalk. What's your deal? And it's four young kids. And they're like, we just came in on a bus from here. We walked from the Greyhound bus station and we have nowhere to go and no money. So they're like, well, it's a family. We don't let families just sit on the street. They drove them to Coalition. Coalition took them right in at 11 p.m. Same for Christian Service Center. So the officers are trained to gauge what your needs are. And based on what your needs are, they figure out which of the facilities are the best. Is Salvation Army more helpful? Is Coalition more helpful? Is Christian Service Center more helpful? And they will route you to that. And we really don't like making arrests, but there's a lot of times, like I read with them the other day, and sometimes, as you can imagine, people off their meds, people who become violent to the officer right when they get out of their car and they come right to the officer because they may think they're somewhere else and in a different area or just, sort of a delusional state. We have to act on those. And those are the ones you see a lot of times we take to jail. But for us, like I said, we can't arrest our way out of it. And we have a little handouts. I mean, even United Against Poverty, we just have all the different handouts for all the different places. And we're like, okay, this person qualifies for this one. Let's see if they'll go with this facility. And we just sort of run it through like that. Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. As individuals or as a community, what can we do to support your efforts?
So I think a lot of it is, everyone's very supportive. You guys are very supportive. A lot of things are wait for all the information to come in. Like the reason I had to put out the release yesterday on the pro-Palestinian protest and basically release all my body cameras and say this is what happened. Because right after the protest, everybody said, no, it was peaceful. We did nothing to you. We didn't mess with the police. We were good at the police. We love the police. Then, and then we're taking all this heat. Like we went in there and broke up a peaceful rally. We're just arresting people using a loudspeaker, which is not even close to the case. So we released it 2 days later. So I sort of am in a position where I sort of wait and see how things respond, because I don't like just going out there and blasting people. That's not my job. It's to go out here and just blast people all over. That's not what we do. So I have to wait for a few days for all information to come in. So I just always ask for people to wait and see what happens. If we have an officer involved shooting, if we have a protest that may go bad, all those kind of things that police departments deal with, believe me, we have to investigate those. We have rules we follow. We have other agencies we work with. There'll be a time when, we have a gray shooting. Most of our shootings are pretty cut and dry, but we'll have that gray shooting, which people are like, oh my goodness, it's a terrible shooting. Those are going to happen. It's the nature of the beast. But just give us time to work it out, because with those kind of things, we're working with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, State Attorney's Office, and we'll get to the bottom of it. If the officer did something wrong, we will handle it. But a lot of times it's where the community just jumps on it so fast. And they're like, well, no, this is our narrative. We have to get our narrative out because it supports whatever their cause is. So they're tearing us down to support their cause and trying to make us look bad. I'm like, well, okay, give it a couple of days. And I was like, okay, I'm tired of looking at all this anti-police stuff. Watch this, boom, play. And I'll show you what really happened. And that's what we usually do. So I always just say, please give us a couple of days to get things ironed out. And then we'll come back. We're a very transparent agency. All our officers wear body cameras. So, most of the incidents are captured. And I will say body cameras don't always show all the angles. That's why we have a very large network of other cameras, and we have community partner cameras that we show, and we try and get to the bottom of everything. Yep.
Thank you, Chief, for being here today. With the advent of technology where it is, and cars that want to drive themselves, go straight, turn, stop, start, slow down, speed up, are you getting people saying it wasn't me, it was the car?
So we have seen a few of those. Tesla came out pretty quick. They're pretty much the only one with a self-driving car. They pretty much came out really quick, and we're like, no, you're not supposed to do that, because they knew they were in a whole bunch of hurt as people just, basically doing your paperwork on the way to work and letting the car drive you to work. And Orlando's a pretty rough place for that, because as you all know, if you sit on 408 or I-4, it's stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. It'd be different. We live out in the middle of nowhere where there's only a few cars on the street. So that's one of the things we always preach, and it's almost always under surveillance. So most accidents anywhere on the major highways, east, west, I-4, we can see it. We can play it back and see it and see what actually happened. So, that sort of helped with a lot of this. But we always preach to people, you gotta pay attention to what you're doing. The phone call can wait, playing with your computer can wait, if you're going to be on the phone, use your handheld, your Bluetooth in your car. Those are the things, the technology that helps us every day. My car's got a heads up display, so I can see everything right in front of my eyes. So, those are technologies there, and technology helps. Use the technology. But just keep your eyes on the road.
Chief,
Correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there or has it passed some legislation saying we can remove homeless people if we have a safe place to put them? Is that in fact law? Is it pending law? And if it is law, what are the plans for the city of Orlando to implement that?
So the city's still looking at how they're going to respond to that. We actually got till January, and that's the law they just passed. And basically what it says is the homeless can't be on public property. So, and if you're a city, you need to look at making a camp for them. And with your camp, you have to have bathrooms, medical, security, and all those kind of things. And the camp has to move every year. So those are kind of things that were just passed pretty quickly. And where it affects us is if you see people on public property, you could actually sue the city and say, hey, there's people on your public property, we could sue you. So there's a lot to get through. And I was assured by like August, I'll have something to work with as far as, all the appeals. There's a bunch of appeals, so it may not last. But just to see exactly what the police department has to do as far as dealing with the homeless. Do I have to move them from every public property, which would be impossible? If you drive under I-4, there's homeless under each of the overchanges, overpasses for I-4. So there's so much into that it's taking a while for all illegal to get through it. They're going back and forth with Tallahassee trying to figure out what happens. I think Orlando is very good with the homeless and very friendly with the homeless, and even our department's very friendly with the homeless, and we do whatever we can to assist them. I think the law will probably be a little complex for us. That's why I'm just sort of waiting to see how it all comes out and see how it all washes out and see what we actually have to do. And of course, we'll do whatever the law says when that time comes.
In the planning, is this going to be one of those deals where, yeah, we should do it, but not in my backyard?
I would say if they were looking for a place to put this, if they decided to go down the camp route, that's going to be difficult because as you can imagine, anybody where you live, you want prison next to you? No. It's just, you want a homeless camp next to you? No. It's just the way people are. People don't want those things changing their environment. So I think it's a very new lift to find somewhere we could put something like that. So it's just one of those kind of things that's a question. I don't know if it'll ever come to that, but we're waiting to see, and hopefully we figure out what the future is.
As a law enforcement administrator, what is the greatest challenge that you face day to day?
So it's interesting. The greatest challenge I face, which most people wouldn't know, is personnel. So I've got 1,300 employees. As you imagine, 1,300 employees. I get calls at night, and I just sort of just shake my head and roll back up and go back to sleep. I'm like, so such and such got a DUI doing what? Leaving a strip club? Okay, thanks. That's nice. I'm going back to bed. We'll deal with it in the morning. We'll leave my duty and we'll deal with it in the morning. It just amazes me what some of the things officers get themselves into, especially when you know them, because 1,300 officers is not a lot. And I've been around a long time, so I know most of these officers besides the brand new ones. It just amazes me some of the crazy things they get into, domestics at home, child abuse. You're not expecting it. And you're not expecting it from people you see every day and talk to every day. And me managing all those kind of cases. And I've always been a cop that I hold them to a high standard. I mean, I fire officers. I do whatever you need to follow the law, and I have no problem firing and terminating people. But it's just those things. It always takes me by surprise because it's not something I expect to deal with. I expect to deal with fighting for my budget, changes to the laws. But I didn't really expect to deal with 1,400 individuals doing crazy stuff. Yeah.
Chief, thank you for being here. Thanks for what you and your team are doing for our community.
Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.